sidelines can watch it calmly and say, oh, that's what you need to do. And I'd say, great, thanks. You know, we're colleagues, we got on well. And there didn't seem to be a lot of that in the unreconstructed motor industry of the 80s. It was a different...
That was specific to the motor industry, were there other,
no,
were there other
of
jobs
course
you did?
it wasn't.
Oh,
Of course it wasn't. Advertising was just the same.
It was the same, yeah.
Yes, yes. Oh yes. I mean, no, newspaper journalists, I mean, there were one or two women, but not a lot. And I mean, I worked for newspapers for one particular one for 12 years, where an actor called Patrick Allen and I would stand at opposite ends of the studio and sort of shout at each other, you know. One of my favourites was, "Beagle puppies forced to smoke 20 cigarettes a day," you know. And, you know, and this sort of thing. I mean, but that was the style of the commercials, you know. And you just sort of thought, well, just get on with it, just do it. That's what they want, fine. Just take the money and say thank you very much. You know.
Yeah, the important man, the overall head of the business at the time, was it Harold Musgrove?
Did you know what he looks like?
Tall, thin, grey hair.
He was thin, and he had a very impressive
pointy nose. That was the one.
That was him. He was terrific because he said to me, "What do I do?" He said, "This is your work. We're doing a television interview together." I said, "Look, you're absolutely fine. They want to know what you're saying. Don't talk at things. Just talk quietly to the person you're talking to." And he was wonderful. He absorbed it and said, "Right, gotcha. Okay, thanks. Right, thank you." You know, and that was why I said he was very professional, and he knew. And he was the one who got on perfectly well with the guys who were doing the nuts and bolts work, and because he knew exactly what they were doing.
Shop floor level.
Exactly, and I thought he was terrific. But I had problems. But then broadcasting was just the same. I remember doing a breakfast broadcast, and Frank Boff was interviewing me, and he said, we did the, and this is the thing I hate about those sort of, and it's an old trick, they often do it, but he said, and we finished the interview, and I was being very correct and supportive and everything, and then he said, "Oh, thank you, Nicolette. Ah, yes," and then turned to the camera and said, "Lovely lady, of course." In Germany, of course, they didn't want a woman's voice; they had to have a man's voice, you know. And he thought, "Oh, Frank, thanks abundantly." You know, do you have to always have the last word? But that was, you know, I'd like to say it was all different now, but who knows?
It's supposedly different now.
It's supposed. Well, a lot of things are different, but yeah.
Over the last 30 years,
Yes.
having done this voice, would you say number one, it's enjoyed with the public, and number two, you sort of always look back on it?
I think people look back on it with fondness, amusement, a bit of pride, because it was groundbreaking, although a lot of other things broke apart from the ground. You know, but it had a sort of, I think somebody ought to make a film about it, you know, because there was a sort of charm about the idea. Actually, when you get into a car, it might be better if you were able to tell it what to do rather than it tells you what to do. I mean, you know, that sort of occurred to us, but we thought, well, nothing to do with it. Well, you know, and who is this person who needs to look at his handbook all the time? That worried me, but...
You don't carry it around all the time, though, do you? I don't.
Well, I do. It's in my... Because I can never remember certain things, like the number of like the tyre pressure and things. You know, I've got to write those down somewhere. They're written in the handbook, so I do, I'm afraid, carry it around. In New Zealand, before I came to this country. So
Anyway, talking to that
I was going to make a point, but I've forgotten what it was. Not very interesting. Yeah, it's no, the copies of recordings and things. No, I wouldn't want them. It was part of. Oh, I don't know what I was going to say. Yeah, it was the thing is, I know you know, you think, oh, actors, you know, but you know, we are such an important part of the fabric of this country. Just not only the theatre, the television, the technical stuff. I mean, look at Gravity. You know, look at the technical people. That's wonderful. But also, I did a lot. For example, a regular job I did was for architectural journals in sound for North Sea oil rigs. I did a lot of that sort of stuff.
Have you seen the
And
old
also, there was a company, I think it was a Birmingham, they were making trams, and they were pitching for something, for selling trams to somewhere abroad. I'm not sure that it wasn't Japan. And I was doing the voiceover pitch for it. And I sort of thought, it's quite nice because they got the contract, and I thought, okay, it's a tiny drop in the ocean and my contribution was nothing. But you know, it's part of it's sort of part of the fabric of this country. It's part of our engineering heritage and the fact that, you know, that it was a very important part, and I would love to see. I mean, it's lovely to be here and know that the revivals, you know, and everything, but it's worrying, you know. You sort of think, I would like there to be more. You know, the skill we have the skill basis here anymore? I don't know.
No, we don't.
Well, that's when I talk to people, that's the answer. Okay. I know that sounds silly, but you do. And
So what's your background then, before you did that one?
straightforward. University in New Zealand, Theatre New Zealand. I came to this country, a lot of theatre, a lot of television, film, and then the axe fell just before I was 40. Really, the phone stopped ringing for visual work, but I knew because I'd kept my husband and myself alive at university in New Zealand because we had commercial radio. And so I phoned my agent and said, I've got this mad desire to pay my mortgage and eat occasionally. Would it be all right? You've got a friend who's the best voice agent in London. And in those days, there were only 4. Now there are over 100. And, you know, that's not counting all the agencies that have got voice departments within the agency. It's a huge thing. But when I said to her, and her friend was brilliant, and she said, send me a tape and I'll listen to it. And I said, oh yes, all right, I will. So I'd met an engineer, I'd done some work, and I knew he was good. So I went to him and said, I want to hire you and a studio. I'll record, I know exactly what's needed. I'll record it, you mix it. And I did that, sent it off, and 6 weeks later, she phoned up and said, oh, Nicolette, I've listened to your tape. Yes, that's fine. Yes. Now, 9 till 10 on Thursday the 17th, will you go to Molinaire in Soho? And I said, well, don't you want to meet me? And she said, no, I know what you sound like. I said, fine. And actually, she was right. A lot of my work has been on revoicing on films, you know, changing either dubbing, or if they've cast an English character who's a bit miscast, or they're not free to revoice and there's a technical problem on the sound, you know, they will get it redone. And all I know is that if I am asked to revoice, let's be honest, an old, heavily built, fair-haired, grey-haired woman, there's no illusion at all. It doesn't work. But a neurotic, thin Italian with troubles, perfect. I can go in and it just sits, and it's lovely. It's a weird thing. So the sound has a sort of life of its own. And I got into sound because this was in the 70s, and of course a lot of other actors, people I'd worked with, you know, in television and in the theatre, said, oh no, I wouldn't do a commercial, it's not what I do. How times have changed. But they didn't then, and they thought radio commercials were just cheapening their talent. Yeah. And I've always respected, I love radio, I love sound. Yeah. I grew up with sound. Yeah. Yeah. I can remember listening to, in New Zealand, to Journey into Space, you know, in the transistor in my bedroom, and listening with my parents, sitting around the dining table, sort of after Sunday lunch, listening to Under Milkwood from the BBC, you know, which we got, because it was an important part of our lives. No television, of course, and so I've always loved sound, and I was very happy to go into it, and I still am very happy working in it in whatever. I'm not in demand for commercials. Fair enough. You know, it's a young person's game. Let them get on with it. I wish them well. I'm doing something else. You know, I record books now, which I enjoy. It's a lot of work and a lot of preparation. I wonder why I like it so much. You know, but I do. You know, it's enjoyable.
Good.
And you know, other sorts of stuff. Oxford University Press, God bless them. I've worked for many years. You know, for the teaching. A lot of it. There's a little group of us who've done that for years, and it's really
That's it, well done. Cool, brilliant.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh! And this is all cuttable. I mean, it's not a candle. Maybe it's I don't know.
No, it's a board.
Plastic. It's a very posh board with a slice out of it. It's the worms.
Thanks. Look, it made the photographs, that's the most important
Do
thing.
come and have some cake and a coffee?
Oh,
Absolutely.